welcome to the Capital Conversation with me, Michael Hayman. Now, the work of my guest today has played no small part in ensuring a steady stream of success stories for London. Jules Chappell is Managing Director of London & Partners, not only the Mayor of London's promotional agency, but the company tasked with selling London's story to the world. Now, Jules, welcome to the show. Tell us about that story. Tell us about London.
One of the best cities, one of the best products, I guess, to sell in the world. Somewhere I'm very passionate about living. I'm bringing up my twin daughters here. It's just a wonderful city that brings together the whole world in one place.
So, I mean, London & Partners as a company, I suppose it's a hybrid, really, in the sense that it's got the official job of selling London, but it's also a commercial entity in its own right. Explain the model to us.
So yeah, it's a public-private model. We're about 200 people. We are London's international trade, investment and promotional agency. And so what that means day to day is attracting and bringing over international tourists, international students, international events, but also companies that are looking to expand overseas. And then conversely, we help London's companies to grow and go international as well.
So you are on the front line of how the world sees us right now.
Exactly.
And how does it see us?
Well, I mean, London is, for a lot of people, one of their favourite places. And I think this is the point about having such a diverse global community. I remember watching the Cricket World Cup when that launched back in the summer. And Prince Harry sort of said, you know, I hope this feels like a home game to many of you, because for so many people there are diaspora and communities living here. So that you will recognise, you know, some of the culture and the music and the food, because it's such a global hub. And, you know, I think that will always kind of come first and foremost, that kind of cultural affinity.
So people feel welcome here.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, obviously, you'd have seen the Mayor of London has run this campaign around London is open, because that's such a strong part of what the city has been for hundreds of years.
And open meaning more than not closed. I mean, open as in open as in values, as in
a progressive city where, and you know, London is far from perfect. We all know that, but it is this kind of edgy place of extremes. You know, on the one hand, you have extraordinary history and institutions. On the other hand, you've got people disrupting everything that they can, and both are welcome. And you know, I think it is the fact that all of that is juxtaposed. I mean, a 2,000-year history of just constant reinvention, and it does have this kind of exciting vibe to it that keeps so many of us here.
And for years, it's ridden a pretty impressive tide as a top spot for inward investment, top spot for tourism, rising reputation on things like food and culture. Is there any sense that any of that is at risk with all of the other big, I guess, political factors like Brexit, general elections, all of those sorts of things? Do they have any effect, or does the show go on?
I think the fundamentals are very strong. You know, even things like the time zone, the fact that from a business point of view, this is somewhere that you can come and work both with Asia and America in the same day. The legal systems, the financial ecosystem, the second biggest in the world, Europe's largest tech ecosystem, the universities, you know, 4 of the best in the world, and many, many others. So I think those fundamentals remain very strong. But clearly uncertainty, and we've had years of uncertainty, are difficult. And as you can probably tell, I'm an optimistic person, but for me, one of the things that it's not just about Brexit. You know, there are all sorts of other big issues in the world, potential global slowdowns, you know, trade barriers, etc. And I think what this does do is it's a bit of a kick to complacency. And one of the things that makes this city great is that diversity and the ability to bounce off each other and be creative. And so, without sounding hideously cheesy, but for me, it's about keeping calm and keep innovating.
Right.
You know, so long as we are being creative and innovative, we will continue to adapt, as the city always has done.
And I suppose the question then is to what degree are you ever in control of events when you're looking at these big factors like investment into a city or tourism into a place? I mean, to what degree are you the victim of other factors like the show's moved on, other cities are more in favour or in trend? I mean, to what degree does reputation play out here?
Well, I think we think of ourselves not just as a team of a couple of hundred people. For us, it's about what we can do as a city, but also the many, many people internationally who sort of affiliate with London, but also that kind of progressive, bold, underdoggy, disruptive mindset. And So I think there's a lot that you can do, actually, because, you know, it's not, I mean, no one's fate is handed to them. It's what you make of it. And yes, uncertainty is really helpful, but look at the startups and scale-ups that are attracting record levels of growth here. You know, the tourism numbers continue to I mean, particularly China, with 20% year-on-year growth. So I think it is very much what you make of it. And as I say, I think one of the elements that comes out of a situation like this is this sort of grittiness that we work together and we innovate in ways because we need to.
I mean, and when you look at other sort of, I mean, very specific London challenges, things like knife crime, things like homelessness, I mean, very visible challenges that the city faces right now in terms of how that plays out with other markets looking at London right now. How does that affect it?
I mean, these again are challenges that, as a community, and you look at kind of urbanisation going forward, this is not just a London issue, these are city issues all around the world. And we do huge amounts in collaboration with other cities around the world, because I think the idea of everybody competing against each other, thank goodness, I think it's actually a bit passé. I think it's more about collaborating.
Right, so there's a big new partnership with Berlin, I was reading. So how does that work?
Well, so, I mean, and again, I think there's a temptation to think of this sort of zero-sum competitive, London taking on Paris. We don't see it like that. We've opened new offices in cities where actually quite the opposite. We think now is a really important time to be collaborating, to help each other's entrepreneurs particularly tackle some of these issues. And I think London's sort of base of purpose-driven impact entrepreneurs and investment is growing stronger and stronger and is being seen as one of the world leaders in this.
Do you get the sense, though, that other cities look at London as a bit fair game now? I mean, you certainly listen to Macron, you look at things like Station F, the big technology investment that is in Paris. You look at a real sense that actually there are other opportunities for other cities which have basically arisen because of issues like political volatility and different changes. I mean, to what degree are they buying into the fact that this is a collaborative journey, or do they see this as sort of a more competitive fraternity, shall we say?
But again, I would say no one's isolated from their own problems. You know, I mean, look at the Gilets jaunes, for example. But this is a wider issue around making sure that the next version of capitalism and entrepreneurship is able to, you know, bring everyone with them. And this is where, you know, it really is about collaboration. And again, I mean, you go to US, you go to China, and the scale of innovation there and the scale of data that they have behind their next waves of innovation. If we are not collaborating, Paris, London, Berlin, we're idiots.
Right. I mean, and you mentioned this point. You make the point about the next chapter, and the next chapter for change is being played out predominantly in a lot of cities around the world. I mean, if you were to look at how London is responding to that change, what would you pull out as being the things that you're proudest of?
Well, I mean, for me, I keep coming back to diversity, because I think it is one of the things that I am certainly most proud of, but also that I think is most important for London's future. Because when I do think about what London can bring to the world, if you are looking to design a product that has global resonance, if you are looking to tap into full talent pools, so not just the obvious choices, but full talent that is going to see the world from different points of view, that is something that London can bring, that there aren't many cities around the world that have that level of diversity. So I think it is something that when we think about how do we weather change, if you have got a diverse, global, neurodiverse talent pool, there aren't many things that you can't figure out how to adapt to.
And presumably that puts a responsibility on you to innovate how you promote the message. I mean, how you market London as a great destination. I mean, it used to be airports, golf courses. I mean, how is it today?
Again, I think it's about, it's far less the sort of competitive zero-sum language. The thing is, you can say, you know, London is number one for this, that and the other, and there are plenty of studies, you've named a few, that will say that.
It's not a shopping list anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I think it is about trying to be thought leaders in things that people care about. So when you talk about, I mean, so the Mayor of London is very, very passionate about air quality. That is something that bonds us to so many cities around the world for whom they also care. We talk about modular housing or tackling housing problems. So many other cities care about that. And I truly believe that that level of thought leadership and collaboration, where we're helping each other, it doesn't have to be zero-sum. We can grow this pie together. And I think that is that's quite a marked shift to perhaps where we were 20, 30 years ago, where it was all very much, we're number one in this. And quite honestly, no one, everyone's got a story of we're number one in X, Y, and Z. It depends how you spin the stats.
So this is part of the confidence of the place?
I think so, yeah, absolutely. But it's, anecdotes, but I'm always very struck. So the deputy mayor for business, Rajesh, he will say that London, because it pulls so many stories from people around the world, he came here with very little, but he made his business. He did very, very well, and he will say, he cares about global issues because he's lived them. But so many other people in London have as well, so that's special. Right,
we're going to have to go to the break. A city of many stories, a good place to leave it. And when we come back, we'll take a look at what the future holds for this great capital, in particular, and more generally about Jules's own story, which is a remarkable one. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Now, my guest today is Managing Director of London & Partners, Jules Chappell. Now, that was your job today, but it wasn't always like that, because at 31, you were the ambassador to Guatemala, and a historic position because of your age. Tell us more.
Yeah, it was a huge privilege. I was ambassador to Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And yes, I think I was the youngest and a little unusual.
The youngest ever at the time, I believe, which is quite a record to have.
I think I've still got it.
Is it still in play? Right, OK. Tell us what it means to be an ambassador in a country.
So you are basically the Queen's representative in the country, and that means that you can end up dealing with a whole range of things. So for some people, it's a lot of political positioning, particularly around certain votes, whether those be in the UN or NATO, etc. There's a big consular duty, so if Brits get themselves into trouble, you're there to help. And then, of course, commercial, where you're helping British companies in the country, and then conversely helping to encourage investment.
And you said that if you had your time again, that you would have got a sense of a more singular mission earlier. What did you mean by that?
There are certain things that you'll always have to react to, and that's obviously part of any job. But it's an advice that I would give to any leader, that if you really want to shift the dial on something, you have got to be focused. And I think it took me a while to realise that. So I was just trying to have an impact on so many different things. But I personally look at, some of the most impactful leadership is where people have said, look, this is the thing that I really, really care about, and I'm going to focus on that.
I mean, added to the list of Guatemala, I see here Jordan, Iraq, Washington and Ethiopia, which has given you quite a party wardrobe, I hear. But in terms of, all of those countries, in terms of, what did you learn about how those countries view the UK while you were living and working there?
Again, I would say that we were viewed, I hope, well. I certainly felt a power as an ambassador that I didn't perhaps expect to feel.
As what? As a... what was the power? A convener, or...?
Yeah, very much a convener. We were seen as people who could definitely help to negotiate, who could really bring results. And I found that very empowering. I think sometimes our own perceptions, sometimes perhaps we think too much of ourselves, but quite often I think we perhaps think too little of ourselves as well.
And where were you at the time of the Brexit vote?
Gosh, where was I? I was here. Yeah,
I was
back in
London by then.
I was back in London, yeah.
But newly back?
Yes, yeah. No, very newly back. I came home for the Olympics. I had this almost like a calling thing. I just had to be back for the Olympics. So I think every other Londoner headed out, but I came
that was
home.
Our ultimate feel-good moment.
Yes, it was, yeah.
And presumably the world reacted in one way. How do you think they reacted seeing us through our latest political chapter?
I think there is... a sense that, as I say, it's not just Brexit. There are all sorts of other things going on in the world. And, I've had conversations where I've talked about with the elephant in the room, and people have been like, what elephant? Sometimes, obviously, it is a very significant issue. But again, it depends where you are in the world. And I think there's a sense of a little bit of bemusement, but the UK does have a very long history and very deep friendships. And
I mean, a lot of people will say that the further you go away, the less understanding, the less interest actually about the debates that we're currently sort of entwined within. Actually, people just want to know, how do we do business together? How do we?
What's next? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that definitely is true. I guess from my old role in the Foreign Office, for me, one of the things that I think is difficult is that, obviously for the government, this has been such a huge issue to deal with, and it's extremely complex, as we all realise. But I think at a time when actually there are so many other issues going on in the world, and we've always played a very constructive role, I think. As again, we don't always get it perfect, but we do try and help. And so I think, for a future Foreign Office to be able to do those things when actually...
Do you miss that chapter in your life? I suppose you bring diplomatic skills to what you're doing, but do you get a sense that right now is a time where a lot of those skills could be quite readily deployed?
I do miss it, and I miss the people, but at the same time, I am in a new chapter, and I purposely left public service because I wanted to understand business and I wanted to understand finance. And it was almost, I felt like I now understand how government and actually philanthropy and charity, I saw a lot of that, and military, I understand those big systems and how they work. And for me, the bit that I really wanted to understand was business and finance. I
mean, it's interesting because business and finance is what's new in your career. Have you found it when you've got that close? Do you like it? I mean, what surprised you?
Truthfully, what has surprised me is actually still, it's changing, but still how much some systems are controlled in quite old-fashioned ways. And it genuinely surprised me. When you look at investment patterns, there still are not enough female founders. I mean, London is a city of 50-50, I presume, gender balance and 40% BAME, and, therefore, we should be leading the world.
So it doesn't reflect the society in which it lives. I mean, is that part of the clue to London's future success?
Yeah, absolutely it is.
And if that is the clue, then what happens next? What can be proactively done? What can a city do in a collective sense, I guess, to address its most serious challenges?
Well, we talk about, obviously the technology here is flying, and someone like Russ Shaw from Tech London Advocates will talk about, road to 1 million new jobs. And I remember various people have said it's not that we won't have jobs, it's just whether we will be skilled to do those jobs. So there is, for any city, again, not just London, for any city, there is how do we equip ourselves for these jobs of the future?
And London's on the front line of that accelerated pace of change. But it almost feels like these are overwhelmingly big issues to do with the future of work, the future of education, the future of immigration into the city. Yeah. I mean, such big questions to address. Where do you practically start?
Well, I think, yes, they are big issues, but this city is perfectly capable. And again, it comes, I'm sorry, I'm sounding so boring, but again, it comes down to collaboration. We have incredible thought leaders, but so do other cities around the world. And again, I come back to diversity, because if you just stick to those that have had privileged access in the past, you won't survive this new generation. But in that is the opportunity, because actually if you go beyond and you go to the true depth of talent that is in this city, let this, yes, it's scary, but let this be the catalyst for, releasing and supporting all that talent that in previous iterations of certainly finance and power hasn't always been there.
And obviously, I mean, I suppose where you sort of put your focus will dictate how you might answer this next question, because I suppose the question is, how collaborative is London? I mean, you see it, I guess, in young tech firms, but do you see this, in other parts of the city's economy amongst its bigger businesses?
I think so, because, and actually that is one of the benefits of a place like London, because so much comes together here. So the fact that you have a lot of European headquarters, but you also have startups, you also have scale-ups, you also have a lot of accelerators. And one of the things, so our Mayor's International Business Programme that is for scale-up companies, we have, you know, cohorts every quarter bringing in 75 new companies, hundreds in our alumni. And one of the big benefits we have is getting everyone to facilitate that collaboration. But the mindset of collaboration is already there. And that again is quite striking, because actually if people are willing to pay it back and pay it forward, then the rest is almost easy.
I mean, you get the sense, London's credentials as a business city are world renowned. In terms of what an organisation like yours can do to actually help, I guess, bolster that and promote London as a business-friendly place. I mean, what more could be done? What's the next stages in that journey?
Well, we're trying to be quite innovative in what we do. So there is the day-to-day of helping people. So, you know, for an investor coming in, we will help them get established, we will link them into the various communities that they need to be part of. We can link them directly with opportunities. But one of the projects that I'm working on at the moment is to create a brand new festival for London, which is tapping into both 5G and immersive technologies, so virtual reality, augmented reality, holographic technology. And London, it kind of takes London's more traditional history of creativity, adds in a whack of tech, but then it's also a platform for this kind of meaningful content that I'm talking about. So people who are creating experiences that help us to see the world from different points of view, whether that be different cultures, different mental states, different physical states. And it's effectively saying, you know, technology is a tool. Tech isn't something that needs to be done to us. So technology, you can either feel you're being pushed into echo chambers where you're not able to connect with others, or you can use technology to connect with others in a really meaningful way. And this festival is all about that.
Brilliant. So there you have it. We've heard it here first. A new festival for London on its way, and actually a real focus on the future. Jules, thank you very much for joining me on the Capital Conversation today. And that's all we have time for another edition. And thanks to my guest, Jules Chappell, the diplomatic director driving deals into London and pushing out the city's success to the rest of the world. She's someone who spent her career travelling the world, but found herself back in Europe's innovation capital, helping her home city to prosper. And for more of the best of what London has to offer, join me next time on the Capital Conversation. I'll see you then.